Since you click on this video, I'm pretty sure you want to understand Miasma, how it works and how it affects your damage, right? Because I was like super curious to see how much damage I'm actually losing during the Miasma mechanic. You know, because as you probably know, it's a mechanic that is going to increase the enemy defense. And the Yi Xuan as a unit that can ignore the enemy defense can completely ignore the Miasma mechanic, right? If you believe this, you're actually wrong because, yes, Yi Xuan also loses damage during the Miasma mechanic. The whole gimmick on Rupture is being able to bypass the enemy defense, right? Yet Miasma still lowers down Yi Xuan damage. This video is going to assume that you can understand everything that is in your screen right now. If you can't understand the damage formula, it's going to be better for you to understand what I'm going to explain, because I'll be going to talk about some of these and exactly why it lowers the damage, how it lowers your damage, and why Yi Xuan is actually not immune to Miasma. Okay, if you can't understand everything, you're good. If you can't understand something and you want to understand, then I highly recommend checking out my damage guide, which I'll be linking in the top right corner right now, because it's going to make it easier for you to follow up. Okay, so for this test, I use MB dodge counter and Shield 7 because we have a boss that has access to the Miasma phase. So you can see here that we're getting 3082. That's how much damage we're getting before the Miasma phase. And then I proceed to use Yi Xuan to trigger the Miasma phase. 1610. That's how much damage we are dealing using MB dodge counter during the Miasma phase, okay? And that's a 48% damage loss during the Miasma. I was like, there's no way it's that much. We're getting a new class that can completely ignore this and just, you know, deal damage during the Miasma mechanic. I was like, there's no way this is happening. And then I decided to do some tests by using Yi Xuan. Same things as on Yi Xuan as well, but since I'm using her signature, I need to walk around a little bit to disable her signature buff. Okay, so after the signature buff is over, I use some dodge counters, and we get 6809. That's how much damage we're getting on the last two hits of the dodge counter. You see, the last two hits deal more damage. So here we are, 6809. That's how much damage we are getting. So let's put here to compare 6809. Okay, and let's now jump to the Miasma phase. Jump a little further. Here we are, 5107. That's how much damage we are getting during the Miasma phase. See? 5107. I'm going to jump a little further. Okay, so here after Miasma is over, we go back to the exact same damage. So yeah, Yi Xuan is also losing some damage during the Miasma mechanic. And if I put it here to compare, 5107, Yi Xuan is losing a 25% damage. It was like, but isn't Yi Xuan supposed to ignore the enemy defense? Why is Yi Xuan actually losing damage during the Miasma? So I did another test, and this time using Rina, because Rina can give penetration for Yi Xuan, right? Same damages again. Okay, so now let's apply Rina and see if the penetration can save us and give us some increased damage. Okay, so I swapped to Rina. I apply the penetration buff. You can see here in the top left corner is with the Rina buff. Yet the dodge counter still deals 5107. So yeah, Sheer Force is working as intended, because the whole gimmick on Sheer Force is that attack, it doesn't exist. Instead, Yi Xuan uses Sheer Force. And the thing about Sheer Force is that it actually ignores the defense multiplier. Everything works as usual, but defense multiplier is something that Sheer Force is not going to look at it. And as you know, defense multiplier is meant to reduce your damage, okay? So if we're ignoring this, this means that the enemy is getting 25% less damage, but how? How Yi Xuan is not dealing enough damage to the enemy, right? And it's this thing right here. This thing right here is reducing Yi Xuan damage by 25%. By default, we don't have these on a lot of enemies. There is no agent that has access to damage taking buffs. And if you, for some reason, is thinking about ZZZ with her additional ability, this is not damage taken, okay? This is just damage. The wording is weird, maybe translation issues, but this is not damage taken, okay? If you're thinking about Nicole's signature as well, it is not damage taken. I'm pretty sure I am on Brimstone. Yeah, I remove Nicole's signature to avoid triggering damage increase. Nicole's signature is not damage taken is also just damage multiplier. Okay, just keep this in mind. We don't have a single agent with access to damage taken multiplier. In case you're still unsure on how shear force actually works, it's basically like this. You see attack, it doesn't exist on the shear force formula. We also don't have the defense multiplier. Okay, instead, what we have on the Yi Xuan damage calculation is something else called shear force, which scales on your attack, but only on 30% of your attack. And then we have something else that is HP. Okay, every single Rupture agent scales on attack, and the Yi Xuan scales on HP as well. Both of these goes and make shear force, which ignores the defense multiplier, as we said over there. But to compensate this, Yi Xuan get access to another multiplier, which is called shear damage. And yes, despite the name, if for some reason you thought that this was damage, it is not. It is shear damage is a brand new multiplier that only affects units that use shear force. So I know it's so confusing. I also hate it. Okay, let's go back into the formula of Miasma. We all know right now that the enemy has a damage reduction effect during the Miasma mechanic, but what about the defense multiplier? Because this actually hurts non-rupture agents quite a lot, right? We saw right here with MB that we're actually losing 48% damage during the Miasma mechanic, and this is definitely quite a lot. So here I used all my MB stats, okay, the same ones that I showcased right here. A little further, right here, as you can see, all the same stats I'm using on this small calculator that just applies the same damage formula that I'm showing right here in order to find the expected damage. And you can see here, it's almost impossible to get like perfect numbers, you know, on calculations because of rounding errors and how you do the calculations inside of the game. So you can see here that the final damage is at 3081.6, which is like really close to what we're getting inside of the game. Like, come on. Then let's apply the damage reduction effect. Okay, so minus 25%. It lowers down, but it's still not enough. There's still something else, right? The defense. Let's jump straight to the point. It's 80%. It's 80%, that's how much defense the enemy is getting during the Miasma mechanic. You can see here that once again we get like really close to the damage that happens inside of the game. 1609 using the formula, and inside of the game we're getting 1610. So that's like 1 damage of difference between the calculation and the damage inside of the game. Okay, it's really hard to get perfect numbers, as I said. So basically during Miasma, what's happening with the enemy is that she's getting a plus 80% defense, and it's also getting a minus 25% damage taken. This is what's happening with the enemy during the Miasma mechanic. Okay, this is basically what's happening with it. And now you're probably thinking, okay, but what about Anomaly build-up? What about Daze as well? Is there any changes? No, there is not. The enemy actually takes full Daze and full Anomaly build-up without a single problem. I think I have a video recording right here. Okay, so here, take a look on MBEX special. Okay, you can see here it builds up 9% of Daze. You can see here as well how much Anomaly is building on the enemy. So right here I messed it up a little bit. You can see that I built up some Daze before triggering the Miasma, but it's fine. Okay, let's just focus on +9 and also the build-up. Okay, so you can see here that during the Miasma I use MBEX special, and there you go. Same amount of days, because 2 + 9, that's 11%. And you can see here the Anomaly build-up is also exactly the same. There's no penalty on your Anomaly build-up during Miasma. Okay, so yeah, same Miasma, same days, nothing changes. Okay, it's just about damage. Of course, despite not changing the Anomaly build-up, you're still going to lose damage if you are an Anomaly unit, because yes, with higher defense, the enemy takes decreased damage from anomalies as well. So yeah, you should always keep this in mind. Okay, what about the damage? Can you deal damage to the enemy during the Miasma? Because I have seen some people saying wrong things about how the Miasma shield works. The Miasma shield is totally unrelated to the damage you're dealing to the enemy, and the Miasma shield is also not taking damage in place of the enemy HP, okay? Despite being called a Miasma shield, I think I have a video for you using Evelyn Ultimate, okay? So here, let's start the Miasma mechanic. There we go. And I use Evelyn Ultimate. Take a look at the enemy health bar, okay? Despite the enemy being on Miasma, see? Evelyn still deals damage to them. So it's not something that, oh, only Rupture Agents can bypass the enemy Miasma shield. No, such thing doesn't exist, okay? It's just that your damage is way lower right now. And because of this, you're barely going to notice that you're dealing damage to the enemy. While Yi Xuan still gets the penalty, it's not as much as non-Rupture Agents, because Yi Xuan, as a Rupture Agent, she simply ignores this, okay? This thing right here, it doesn't exist for Yi Xuan. She's still going to be affected by this thing right here, okay? But the 80% defense, it makes no difference for Yi Xuan. Let's talk about how you deal with the Miasma shield, right? Because on the game itself explains for you that there are 3 different ways to deal with the Miasma shield. The first one being dodge counters. The second one is defensive assists. And the last one is ultimates, okay? So these are the 3 ways to deal with Miasma shield, or to better say, to deal better with the Miasma shield, because almost all your damage, all your hits on the enemy is going to help you deal with the Miasma shield. It's going to deplete the Miasma shield, okay? So, not to mention that the enemy also has a standard decay rate. Yes, you heard it right. By default, the Miasma shield drops by itself, okay? So here, I'm going to trigger the Miasma, as you can see, and I'm simply going to fly around without touching the enemy. Look at this. The Miasma is dropping by itself. I just use Yi Xuan to fly around, okay? No hits on the enemy, and look at how much it keeps dropping. It keeps dropping non-stop. There is a limit, though. You see? It reaches a point where you need to hit the enemy to remove the final amount of Miasma shield. But by default, it keeps dropping by itself. Once it gets to this point, it stops dropping. It doesn't drop anymore. You need to use something else, hit the enemy to remove this remaining amount. But by default, it's around 1% every single second. That's how much the Miasma shield drops by itself. Around 1% every single second. Oh, and how do you know it's 1%? There's no way for you to actually measure this. So what I was doing was like taking screenshots and measuring the pixels of the Miasma bar. This is what I was doing, okay? We'll be talking about all of these, okay? So for dodge counters, let's start by talking about dodge counters a little bit. It's around 8 to 9% of the Miasma shield that gets removed on every single dodge counter. There is some interesting stuff because, for example, here we have Yi Xuan, we use a dodge counter, that's around 9% that just got removed, another one, okay? So MB, funny enough, you can notice here that it actually removes less. It actually removes like around 7.5% of the enemy Miasma bar. You can see here defensive assist as well, you see? Right after MB, I swapped to Nicole using defensive assist, and we also get a good amount, okay? So I did measurements on every single one of these. You can see that the second defensive assist, you know that the trigger in chains, the second one removes way less Miasma shield than the first one. But focusing on dodge counters, okay, take a look here on Nicole dodge counter. And I find this one really funny because I just said that MB removes 7.5. Nicole removes pretty much around 7% using dodge counters, and Nicole dodge counters like way faster than MB. At first I was like, okay, maybe the enemy resistance changes how much Miasma shield you are removing from them, right? However, I try using Miyabi and Sokaku, which is like ice units, and this enemy is resistant to ice. You can see right here that still removes a good chunk of Miasma, so it's not related to the attribute at all, okay? Here's another one using my Miyabi. It's around 8.79% once again, really close to what Yi Xuan removes from the enemy. So it's not related to the enemy resistance. Let me use Sokaku dodge counter at the end. Here. Sokaku has a really fast dodge counter, yet removes the same amount as Miyabi. Look at this. It's a 2-hit, super fast dodge counter. And look at how much miasma it removes from the enemy. I'll be really honest with you all. I have no idea exactly how it scales. This is Yi Xuan with Caesar and Astra. Okay, so we have 2 units buffing Astra. And take a look here during the miasma mechanic. It is still going to remove the same amount as before, around 9%. See, it makes no difference. It makes no difference. It's not about how much damage you're dealing to the enemy. It's not about this. It's just has somewhat a fixed number to the dodge counter itself, okay? And despite being a fixed number, it's not a fixed number on the dodge counter action. It's a fixed number on the dodge counter of each agent. So when I'm talking about dodge counters, you can expect around 8% drop on the miasma shield, okay? Every single time that you use a dodge counter, you're getting, on average, 8% of the miasma shield. On defensive assist, you are removing around 12% of the enemy miasma bar. If you happen to trigger, you know, this chain defensive assist, where you parry like 2-3 attacks from the enemy, every single consecutive one is going to remove 3.5% from the miasma shield, okay? It's not 12% again, okay? It's just 12%, then the next one, 3.5, 3.5, 3.5, and then you have the assist follow-up, which every single agent has a different one, and every single hit of your assist follow-up is also going to help deplete the enemy miasma shield. So honestly, you can see that you can get quite a lot of miasma shield just by using defensive assists, right? And the last one, it's actually ultimate, and ultimate is surprisingly underwhelming because it's only on average 20% to maybe 25%. This is on average how much you're going to get. I tried my best to find some way that the stat is like scaling, if it's with the duration, if it's with the number of hits, but honestly, I don't know how it scales. I tried my best. I tried a lot of different ultimates here. You can see we have Miyabi, we have Yanagi, we have Sokaku, which is like super long. Okay, here I have the amount of miasma being removed minus the standard decay rate, and here I measure the frames because I picked up all of these recordings and I use DaVinci Resolve to measure the frames from the moment the screen finishes the cinematic, from the moment it goes back into the game to the moment of the last hit on the enemy. I measure the frames to see if there's like a relation between the duration of the ultimate and how much miasma is removing from the enemy. Yet, I don't know, it makes no sense. There are some ultimates which goes like above this. There are some ultimates which actually deals more damage than this, but it's mostly because of this thing right here. When it comes to like basic attacks doing damage, I'm not so sure how it works because, as I said, it's not related to your damage, which basically means that Rupture Agents, they are actually not that good on dealing with miasma by themselves. Okay, Rupture has no advantage when removing the miasma shield. The fact that you're dealing more damage, it doesn't mean that you're doing more miasma decay on the enemy. Oh, that's right, we have the Purified effect, right? You're probably curious about the Purified effect. Nothing matters. It's a fixed amount of damage of 15% of the enemy HP. You can take a look here, for example, that when I remove the miasma from the enemy, you're going to see like a huge red. Just by measuring the pixels, you're going to get around 15% of the enemy health. And if you take a look here on the Miasma Priest as well, it happens exactly the same thing. There we go. If you measure this one is around 50%. You can see that the damage is like different here. Miasma Priest is taking like 1,151,000. And the Shield Boss, it takes like a higher damage, you see? But still, at the end, it is still 15% of the enemy health. And just to share some final thoughts on Miasma, like, honestly, I really like it. I like the fact that we're getting a mechanic that every single unit can actually interact with it. Because instead of, you know, Bringer which is a boss that is tailored for a really specific unit and really specific class, because the Bringer is an Anomaly boss fight. This means that every single agent that is not from Anomaly class is going to struggle against Bringer. And then Bringer is a ice weak unit, which basically means that Miyabi is like the best option for Bringer. Yes, you can use Sokaku, but we're talking about really off-meta builds that most players are not even going to think about it. It's not that easy. It's not cool to have something that you feel like only a single unit can interact with it. At least is also not on the same level, for example, as Marionette and Pompey. Pompey just starts spinning around for no reason at all, and I don't know, you lost like 10 seconds of your rotation of damage because Pompey is like invulnerable during this. During the Miasma, as you can see, you can still hit the enemy. You can still interact with the enemy. If you want to, you can just spend your ultimates and reduce the Miasma shield. And this is cool, you know? You still feel that you're in the middle of the fight despite the enemy being during a new phase or new mechanic. There's plenty of different ways where you can deal with the Miasma mechanic. Here, for example, I'm just testing MB dodges. It works. It removes the enemy Miasma because this is an enemy that keeps attacking you and you can do a lot of dodge counters. Okay, cool stuff. We have, for example, the weekly boss fight, which is also interacts with Miasma. But if you take a look at the end, it gives you like 3 defensive assists right at the end of his combo, his rotation. A lot of defensive assists here as well. Take a look at this. And as I said, defensive assist removes a really good chunk of the Miasma shield. So you can see, depending on the boss fight, depending on the enemy, depending on your character, depending on the player, there are plenty of ways where you can interact with Miasma, and I like it. It's not like Bringer, it's not like an invulnerability phase where you just need to watch the enemy because it's just going to do literally nothing. This is something that every single agent has a chance to interact and remove from the enemy. Okay, this is not something really specific for Rupture Agents, this is not something specific for Yi Xuan, it's something that every single character can deal with it. And as I said, even Yi Xuan actually suffers from Miasma, so at the end of the day, if you want to get like better scores, if you want to get a faster clear on shield defense, you still need to play around Miasma, because if you ignore Miasma just because you are Yi Xuan, you're still losing 25% damage. So this should be probably everything that I want to talk about Miasma. I really tried my best to get every single piece of information, yet I'm still not fully satisfied with the ultimate things, for example, because I still couldn't find a single relation on how one thing works and why the other doesn't work. But it is still like on average the numbers that I showed here. And for me personally, the best way for you to deal with Miasma is by using defensive assists. Of course, if you have an enemy that is going to attack you quite a lot and doesn't give you defensive assist prompts, then maybe, of course, using dodge counters will be better. Maybe you have really good ultimates and a lot of, I don't know, anomaly units, for example, where the ultimate is not exactly your main source of damage. It's mostly about the build-up itself, you know? So yeah, you have plenty of options. That's it for everything regarding Miasma. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments down below or join my Discord server. I'm actually way more active on my Discord than the YouTube comments, just so you know. And if you still have any questions regarding damage and how Anomaly works, then I highly recommend you checking out both my damage and my Anomaly guide that will be linking in the screen right now. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.